Hello students, I'm Himani Sharma, your UGC NET educator. In this new YouTube video, we are going to move forward with the concept series which were there related to Indian poets, which is related to what? Which is related to our paper-II of English literature, which is subject specific. So first of all, who do we have here? We have Rabindranath Tagore, the Bard of Bengal. Just like Shakespeare had been given the title of the Bard of Avon, he had been given the title of being the Bard of Bengal. Correct? So we are going to talk about him in detail, and of course we'll see that there are certain works of his, there are certain poems which are written by him, certain poems which are translated into English by himself. So we are going to talk about those very things in detail. So first of all, let's just see what did he look like and where was he born, when was he born and where did he die. He was born in the year 1861 in Kolkata. Right, and he also passed away in 1941 in Kolkata only, correct? Kolkata. And of course, as I told you, in 1941, he passed away as well in Kolkata. He was one such person who has been awarded with the Nobel Prize in Literature, right? When we talk about the Indian sphere. Now let's just move into other factual details which are there. He was a poet, philosopher and a polymath from Bengal. What do we mean by the word polymath? We mean an expert, a person who knows much and more things, an expert in the field, correct? So he was a polymath from Bengal, India. First non-European, Nobel laureate in literature, as I already told you. He was awarded with the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1913. For which work? We are going to talk about it. So for that very thing, you are supposed to stay tuned with me for a longer period of time. His poetry is deeply influenced by his surroundings, spirituality, because we talked about him being a philosopher, and universal themes of brotherhood, universal themes of certain emotions, etc., which can relate to one person and the other as well. So we see those very things in his works, in his poetry, in his novels, in his short stories, so on and so forth, which have been written in Bengali, and of course, which are translated into English as well. He got the knighthood from King George V in the year 1915 for his contribution to literature. But one factual information that I would like to drop in here is that even if he was awarded in 1915 with this very thing, he, during the time of the Jallianwala massacre, right, during the Jallianwala massacre, he renounced this title of being a knight, correct? He wrote two national anthems which are there. Number one is Jan Gan Man for India and Amar Sonar Bangla for Bangladesh. There is one more, national anthem which is influenced by Tagore. If you know it, you can drop it in the comment section below. Also, Tagore was one such person who was color blind, and he had been in a conversation with Einstein as well, where they talked about the nature, where they talked about science, research, so on and so forth. So you see that he was a person who was not at all just related to India, Indian themes as well, and the Indian sphere altogether, but he was a person who was trying to approach other people who were really famous, and he was a person who also was famous, of course, and came in contact with other people as well. So he had certain nicknames. Bard of Bengal, already told you, just like Shakespeare's Bard of Avon, right? Gurudev, Kabi Guru, and it is written as we pronounce it in Bengali. So Kabi Guru means Kavi Guru, correct? Biswa Kabi means Vishwa Kavi, correct? The poet of the world. 1901, he founded an experimental school in a rural West Bengal area, which we know as Shanti Niketan, abode of peace, which can be asked in the NET examination. And there also, he developed one thing, which is known as Visva Bharati School in Shanti Niketan, correct? The Indian and Western tradition where he sought to blend these very things. So as he came in contact with other people from different spheres of the world, from different parts of the world, he was trying to bring forth the certain things which were related to India, as well as also which were related to, the West, the Eastern and the Western countries. His poetry is known for its lyrical quality. We are going to read and you will understand what and how I mean certain things. Emotional depth can also be seen in his poetry. He blended, as we already talked about, Indian elements with the Western literary elements and then produced a poem. Correct? Not only poem but other works as well. Love, nature, spirituality, humanism, these are certain major themes which can be seen in Tagore's poetry when we will be reading them. Encompassed various genres, including poetry, songs, plays, novels, essays, short stories, etc. So he was a person who was not just associated with one field of being a poet, but he was also associated with other fields, other genres which are there in literature per se. Now, first of all, we are going to talk about GITANJALI, which is one famous work by Rabindranath Tagore. And of course, it was first of all, if we talk about it, it was first written in 1910, correct? Collection of songs which was published and written in 1910 and his most acclaimed work. But later on in the year 1912, he translated these very collection of songs into English by himself so that the crux, so that the thought process that he has put forth in the Bengali poems, that is not reduced from here. Translated into English by him in 1912 and then he gave it a name, GITANJALI, song offerings. If you see in the bracket song offerings, of course it is a translation into English by Tagore. Hailed by W.B. Yeats and Andre Gide, and of course in the 1912 part we see that the preface of the English translation of GITANJALI, it is written by W.B. Yeats, which has been asked in the NET examination that who was the person who wrote the preface to GITANJALI. It was W.B. Yeats. And what preface? In which language? In English. So of course in the English translation only we can see the preface being written by W.B. Yeats. Translated into other several languages as well. And this was a collection, as I was telling you, that he won the Nobel Prize in Literature. But for what work? He won the Nobel Prize in Literature for these very song offerings only in the year 1913. Correct? So, you all being the NET aspirants, you all should be knowing that there are certain, awards, etc., which we are supposed to do, be it Nobel, be it the poet laureates, etc., which of England you are supposed to know. So correct, you are supposed to know this very thing as well, that an Indian person also, the non-European, right, from the non-European sphere, it was Tagore who won what? Who won the Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1913. Where the Mind is Without Fear, which is a poem written by Tagore. Original poem was published in 1910, included in the collection GITANJALI. So this is one factual thing which you all should be noting down, that this is not a separate poem, but it is included as a song. There are certain universities, colleges, etc., which teach this very poem in the bachelor's part. His own translation in 1912 as well in English, and we are going to read the English translation only. It's a powerful expression of his vision for a free and enlightened India and how he sees that where the mind is without fear, jahan pe people are not at all being, scared of certain things, afraid of certain things. A society where individuals are free from fear, narrow-mindedness and divisions based on religion, caste, creed, sex, gender, etc. So he talks about those very things. Emphasize the importance of knowledge, that how with knowledge you will become, the person who is less scared, truth and a broad, open-minded outlook which will remove the narrow-mindedness from your own self if you move to that very path. Correct? So we are going to read it. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. Here, narrow domestic walls signify the narrow-mindedness of the people, the mentality of the people. Where words come out from the depths of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, that you are working hard towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit. He means that people should think logically and not dead habit, that is in superstitions, etc. People should not be delving deep into those very habits. Where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. My father, let my country awake. This is what he talks about, and he says that this is his wish. This is the vision of India that he is suggesting and he is also envisioning. जहाँ पे कोई किसी से डर के नहीं रहेगा, where everybody will be treated equally without any superstitions, without any narrow-mindedness or, the low mentality if we talk about. So you see at that point of time as well how even the British were ruling when this very poetry, this very piece of poetry was there. The original piece and of course the translation, which was in 1912 into English. So this is what he talks about in here. Next we have is The Child Angel, published in the collection The Crescent Moon in 1914. So after Gitanjali's translation, we see that there's another work which was published in 1914, right? The Child Angel. In this poem, Tagore presents the image of a child angel descending from heaven to bring love, joy, peace to the world. So child angel, bachcha bhi hai, angel bhi hai, and of course he or she is trying to bring forward the happiness for people, the joy that they are lacking, baby, correct? It represents the angel, innocence, purity, and a divine presence that can heal and uplift humanity, which talks about the human being at the center, which is the theme of humanism if we talk about Tagore's theme. Correct? So humanism, of course, was about what? That the human being is the center. Humans should be given much importance. Need for childlike wonder and compassion in a world which is often clouded by strife and division. We say that dil to bachcha hai ji, or maybe you should have somewhere or the other, right? You should have that little child in yourself even if you grow after years. Why is he also telling about that? That the innocence remains in you, that the childlike innocence, the childlike wonder, you feel like yes, you still can perform miracles even if you are stuck between your lives ups and downs. Those things are temporary and will go, but you are supposed to deal with those very things with this childlike wonder and compassion that you have, that is in your inner child, correct? Then we have The Sunset of the Century. We are going to read this very poem as well, published as a part of the book Nationalism in 1918. It reflects his contemplation on the state of the world and at the turn of the 20th century. So he is talking about the 20th century, how the world will be. He mourns the loss of human values because he sees that maybe people are not having that much values, those ethics, the heritage, the rich heritage that we used to have even in the context of values. The rise of materialism, being greedy, right, and degradation of nature around. So we see that how Tagore also talks about the nature in his poetry, correct? So how the nature is also being degraded, that has been also taken up as a theme, which is of ecology. If we talk about ecological criticism, we can see it in Tagore's poetry. He calls for introspection. You should introspect certain things, you should think deeply, renewal and a return to the fundamental principles of compassion and harmony which should be there, even if we are talking about in terms of humans, even if we are talking about in terms of surroundings, nature, etc. So I will just increase the size of this very poem for you all. The last sun of the century sets amidst the blood-red clouds of the west and of the whirlwind of hatred. The naked passion of self-love of nations in its drunken delirium of greed, the materialism that he's talking about, is dancing on to the clash of steel and howling verses of vengeance. The hungry self of nation shall burst in a violence of fury from its own shameless feeding, for it has made the world its food, and licking it, crunching it, swallowing it in big morsels, morsels जो हम खाते हैं, टुकड़े खाते हैं, रोटी के टुकड़े खाते हैं, right? It swells and swells, till in the midst of its unholy feast descends the sudden shaft of heaven, piercing its heart of grossness. So, heaven, intervention. The crimson glow of light on the horizon is not the light of thy dawn of peace, my motherland. It's the glimmer of the funeral pyre, burning to ashes the vast flesh, the self-love of the nation, which is degrading, dead under its own excess, because these people are materializing certain things and they are dead under their own flesh, that they are not having the love for their nation now. Thy mourning waits behind the patient dark of the east, meek and silent. Keep watch, India. Bring your offerings of worship for that sacred sunrise which is going to happen, of course. Let the first hymn of its welcome sound in your voice and sing, come peace, thou daughter of God's own suffering, own great suffering. Come with thy treasure of contentment, the sword of fortitude, and meekness crowning thy forehead. So, of course, the themes that we have seen here, the values which are degrading, the rise of materialism, can be seen with these very, images that he has used. And he has also talked about the cry with which he also wants India to come up and rise again. Next we have is The Home and the World, published in the year 1916. It is a novel and not a piece of poetry, but it is important, so I wanted to bring it into your notice, hence it's here. Novel that delves into the complexities of personal relationships, nationalism, this is a theme, and freedom. So if there's any summary available on the internet, you are supposed to read it. Just a brief one, not that much, because from Tagore, mostly the questions on poetry are asked. Conflict between the desire for personal fulfillment and the responsibility towards society and the nation, and the clash between these very things. Should I serve the society? Should I talk about things which are leading to self-fulfillment? Correct? Then we have Ekla Chalo Re, which you would have heard in Bengali. It was published in the year 1905. Motivational and inspiring poem that encourages individuals to walk their own path even in times of adversity. Correct? Ekla Chalo Re means Akele Chalo. So, of course, this poem is motivational, written in Bengali, talking about that even if no one is with you, even if you are having so much downs, so much, difficult situations in your life, you will have one reason and you should move forward with whatever comes in your way, and of course you will succeed. It emphasizes the importance of self-reliance and not dependence. Determination, that if you are determined enough to achieve something, you will for sure. Standing up for one's own beliefs. So this is what he talks about in the poem Ekla Chalo Re. Then we have The Last Bargate, a reflective poem that contemplates the transient nature of life, that how it's ever changing, and the pursuit of material possessions, and again the clash between the two. His realization that the true contentment and fulfillment of life is beyond the material wealth, which is that even if you are having so much but you are not having the contentment from the other end, the contentment which comes from within, you will not be satisfied with the materialistic things which are near you. So he talks about it in the poem The Last Bargain. We have the poem here, we are going to read it. Come and hire me, I cried while in the morning I was walking on the stone paved road. Sword in hand, the king came in his chariot. He held my hand and said, I will hire you with my power. But his power counted for naught, and he went away with his chariot. In the heat of the midday, the houses stood with shut doors. I wandered along the crooked lane, Tutti Frutti Lane. An old man came out with his bag of gold. He pondered and said, I will hire you with my money. He weighed his coins one by one, but I turned away. It was evening. The garden hedge was all flower, right? All aflower. The fair maid came out and said, I will hire you with a smile. Her smile palled and melted into tears, and she went back alone into the dark. The sun glistened on the sand, and the sea waves broke waywardly. A child sat playing with shells. He raised his hand and seemed to know me and said, I hire you with nothing. From thenceforward, that bargain struck in child's play made me a free man, that yes, I am, people are not, these people were talking about their materialistic thing, but that child said that I don't have anything, but I'll still hire you, right? So this is the last bargain which laid much and much emphasis on certain things, and of course, it is the one which led him to think twice about certain things and thinking about that, yes, this child said such an important thing which made me a free man. So, of course, these were certain themes, etc., which we were supposed to cover when it comes to Rabindranath Tagore. Correct? And one more fact before we end up this very video, that Tagore's, Nobel Prize was stolen. So, this is a funny fact which was supposed to be there. Now, I will see you in another video of ours related to the concept series of paper 2. Till then, you all keep on studying for the upcoming NET examination. Thank you so much and have a good day.